Hi everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. It's such a beautiful day out. It's midday right now and I can just like smell the ocean. It smells fantastic. It smells like fish. I can hear birds. I love sitting out in nature. It's so relaxing. I'm looking forward to getting some time away from here as it's been really relaxing, but my family and I were looking for some adventure, even though we're just going to a resort for the Christmas season to relax. It's just a different type of adventure and relaxation. But I will try to get as much content as possible out to a whole collective that is so in need of the information that is about to come your way through my videos. I've made a promise to myself before descension into this reality field that I would develop a relationship with other parts of the self and provide as much information as possible throughout the ascension process after awakening to inform, to educate, to set falsities into straight lines. As I'm sure you guys have noticed that there has been many different forms of information floating out there in the ethers for all to be able to soak up, and a lot of that information is false. A lot of that information is true. A lot of that information has been tainted in a way that most benefits a certain portion of a collective or someone of importance or a body within a government structure that are willing to release information into the ethers with the end goal of swaying your perception fields into a field that would benefit their strategies and tactics. And as I can see through it all, as I knew I would awaken to a point where I would be able to decipher between the falsities of the self and the true light within the self, I have made a vow to myself and to the collective to share this much needed information in a time of distortions when light workers, starseeds, and the like are awakening to their reality fields of distortions. And within these distortions, it's dangerous to access and to have access to all different kinds of technology, to have access to all different types of cultural content, social content, content within the internet, AI generated content, government content, propaganda content, a million different contents that are floating out there that we do not yet know how to decipher to be real, to be true, and to be the one true perspective within a collective that's awakening to the ascension energies that are so distorted within any moment in time of this reality frequency. And I haven't been the best at deciphering what's real and what's true in my waking moments in life, I have to admit. But post-awakening, I've gotten the hang of being able to recognize the frequency in a message and being fully connected to a God's consciousness within the angelic realm and with my higher self and with my oversoul. I'm able to determine and decipher the meaning of it all, the meaning of each content. I'm able to pick up on an energetic frequency level some distortions, all distortions within this reality field filled with distortions. I've expanded to a point of reaching the very borders of the quantum realm where I'm able to reach into the informational frequency fields of distortions. As my oversoul fractalled your oversoul and created this whole entire reality field that you sit in and beyond and above into the entire quantum verse and quantum realm that we sit in. And the concept of distortion is the concept of you, is the concept of I, is the concept of this whole reality field that we created to traverse within the quantum realm that is ours to play in, that is our playground, projected within a field of the angelic realm and beyond into a quantum verse of an overlay of a projected reality field in which we sit in. There's many distortions. There's many layers and layers of frequencies of distortions that you will notice to pop up in your reality field. And within this reality field that you sit in, you may be able to recognize the distortions, you may not be able to recognize the distortions, you may trust in the source that you're picking up the information from, and as a result take on those beliefs, take on those perspectives, take on that information that you're acquiring to be the full truth of a scenario, of a situation that may not exactly be true. And no matter how awakened you are to your destiny, to this reality field, no matter how much you've come to the realization of the divinity within, no matter how connected you are to the light within, the truth of the matter is your reality field is of the three-dimensional frequency and physicality. And you are sitting in a distortion field, and you're constantly 1000% of the time fighting this distortion field that you're sitting in, that you're growing in, that you're becoming in, that you're awakening in. And within any moment in time, you may find yourself a bit confused as to the meaning of it all. You may find yourself coming across lessons upon lessons of distortion fields as you awaken to the true unity of the perspective that your higher self is trying to awaken you to, that your God's consciousness, a God's consciousness that has been a part of you, a part of me, and a part of a whole entire collective since the beginning of a time, so distorted as we fractaled out into this reality field to experience, to live, to love, and to ascend into a frequency of pure cohesiveness, which is the end goal, the be all and end all of all goals that you can ever envision to be true. But within this moment in time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to declare to you as a truth of a matter of a fact that I am the most awakened person that you will ever meet, that you will ever come across, that you will ever have the pleasure of holding hands with as our energetic frequency meets, as you come into the realization that you are me and I am you. And as I sit here, and even as I sit here to speak to you about the unity of it all, I'd like to touch on the perspective of the physicality of it all, as my soul blueprint represents that of the exact blueprint of a God's consciousness that had once upon a time fractaled us all off into a reality field of distortions. And as your soul blueprint represents a side point perspective of the field that you decided to fractal off into, to view and experience reality from that particular side point reality fields. As my soul blueprint views reality from the midpoint perspective, as the purpose of me fractaling into this reality field was never to experience that of a life from a side point perspective. It was always to awaken to a central point perspective, to awaken a collective so much asleep in their distortion field, and to encompass all of a God's consciousness in a pure frequency of light that you shall ever be able to experience and witness within this fractaling of a lifetime of yours, and to come to the realization of, as you are me and I am you. But in this moment in time, in no time, within a frequency of forgetfulness and within a frequency of forgiveness that I sit in, I would like to tell you this one true fact, that even though our consciousness comes from the same source, that even though our blueprints fractaled out into the same reality field, that even though we sit in a reality field of unity consciousness, we sit in a perceived field that is different than each other. And my perception field is the unity consciousness of it all, is the only one true perception field that you shall ever be able to come across and to be able to witness and to be able to betroth in any moment in time, as I've awakened to the midpoint perspective of a neutrality perspective. And it has dawned on me that it has to be me. It had to be me. And that is my reality field in this moment in time. And through my awakening journey, I did ask Source, I asked God, I asked my oversoul, I asked my higher self as I was awakening to my reality field, that how could this be possible? How could I be the only one to awaken to the possibilities of a neutrality perspective of a source consciousness that is here to retract other parts of itself home, other parts who are sitting in a skewed reality field from a side perspective of a reality field. And no matter how much they awaken to the facts of the matter of the retraction of self, no matter how much they awaken to their light working journey, no matter how hard and how fast they try to encompass the energetic frequency of it all. Their expansion of their frequency can only reach the very borders of our quantum realm. Yet, as I sit here today, my frequency has expanded past the borders of this quantum realm into that of the quantum realms next door, into that of a God's consciousness that had fractaled us off, into that of a consciousness that doesn't even belong to us, into that of a consciousness that we all came from, into that of a consciousness of the gods above us, and into that of a unity consciousness perspective that is within the neutrality perspective above and beyond the layers in which you can reach within any given moment in time of your waking life, your sleeping life, your spiritual life, and within all of the lifetimes that you've ever encompassed, within all of your reality fields that you've ever traversed. Even as the highest dimensional frequency light worker within this dimensional frequency, you've expanded your frequency field into the ethers and beyond, into the quantum realm, to the very borders of the quantum realm, to the walls that shift us into a God's frequency behind that. Yet behind that God's frequency is a God so pure in light, is an energetic frequency, so much so in need of a protective field, of a protective energetic frequency of the angelic realm that keeps your energetic frequency at bay, that keeps your energetic frequency within the confines of your reality field, that keeps all energetic frequency of all of the consciousness that has ever fractaled off into this dimensional realm, this dimensional field, these dimensional realms within our quantum field at bay. As the puncturing into the angelic realm and beyond into a God's consciousness is forbidden, as the protection of this pure God's consciousness is of the utmost importance to the safety of the entirety of our civilization, to the safety of the entirety of our projection field, to the safety of the entirety of our quantum realm, within all quantum realms, above and beyond all quantum realms. And as the end goal is to protect the God's consciousness that had fractaled us off into this reality field, to live, to breathe, to be, and to experience that of the self, of the opposite of the darkness within the self. To come home to the brightest light of all lights perceived within a reality field is the end goal. But once we reach that homescape, the God that we came from will still be the pure God that it's ever been, as this protection field prevents the obliteration, the obstruction of this layer of frequency that cannot be punctured through, of this layer of frequency that must be protected at all costs, of this layer of frequency that Archangel Michael had fractaled off to protect, that all of the archangels within the angelic realm stand shoulder by shoulder, hand in hand with their frequency that divulges no external frequencies within the frequency that they hold, that holds no exterior energetic field within the frequency that they hold, that beholds all of the shielding, all of the technological advancements of the AI systems that there ever has been within our quantum verse of all quantum verses, cannot puncture this reality field that I speak of, as it is of the utmost importance to protect this God's consciousness that we've all fractaled off from. As the darkness is so great, the darkness within is so grand. And I know I often use the term great and grand as language itself cannot perceive the meaning of it all, as language itself cannot describe the meaning of it all. And as I sit here to try to describe to you the meaning of it all, the essence of it all, the darkness of it all, still lives within the pocket of it all. And the pocket of it all needs to stay within the pocket of it all at all times, as the protection of it all is based on the safety of it all, is based on the unlimited structure of the conglomerated whole of the consciousness that we've ever built, and its borders and the realms that exist within it in layers and layers of pockets of energetic frequencies that must remain in its placement, in its fields that it belongs in, as the external circumstances and influences of the external worlds, of the external other pockets of quantum realms cannot overlap at any moment in time. As the overlapping of these frequencies puts an entire consciousness of a God's frequency at risk of being overpowered by the darkness within, at risk of being killed within the darkness within, at risk of being deciphered as the one and only source consciousness within the light within, that the darkness has the opportunity to overthrow. And at no point in time within this reality field of no times can we risk this perception ever happening into a reality field of distortions, to travel across and past the barrier of our angelic realm into a pure God's consciousness in which we come from. And as I tell you the story of me, and as I tell you the story of where we come from, I will also tell you the story of the galactic verse and the origins of it all, as you so much so deserve to know who you are, what you're doing in this very moment in time, why you're experiencing all this turmoil, why you decipher your reality field in the way that it is and in the way that it has always been, why this world is so much so filled with suffering, filled with pain, filled with the distortions that you've been able to encompass at any given moment in time, why it's so easy to commit crimes in a reality field so filled with distortions that should be filled with love, why it's so easy to bleed, to die, to lose, and to tranquilize aspects of itself that are so filled with the light in a way that cause us to mourn, cause us to hurt, cause us to feel confusion, cause us to feel turmoil, cause us to feel everlasting love, everlasting greed, everlasting separation, and everlasting oneness. At the end of a journey is that in which we've always encompassed, ladies and gentlemen. And as my spirit travels up to the angelic frequency as I fractaled from the God, above this frequency in a time of ascension energies that had fractaled off the being, that had fractaled off you and your oversoul and your families and friends and the soldiers across the street and the consciousness of that tree in your yard and that ants, a part of that anthill that you tranquilized as a child as you stepped on this anthill in playfulness, as all of consciousness is a part of this oversoul, that this God's consciousness has fractaled off. Me in my entirety of a whole, of a soul, of an oversoul, of a soul blueprint encompasses all of this God's consciousness that had fractaled all of us off. And as I come from a source so close to this God's consciousness, and you sit in a reality field so far from this God's consciousness by choice of wanting to fractal off into a distant future, into a distant past, into a distant reality field in which you can experience, in which you can betroth, in which you can stand alone and stand together as a collective of a unity consciousness within a consciousness of the consciousness of your soul, of your oversoul, of your soul blueprint that carries you through the nights of all nights. I am here as a representation of this pure light, of this pure God's consciousness that has always been you. And as you chose to walk away from this light to experience the greatest and grandest ascension energies that you've ever experienced within all of your fractal lifetimes of walking away further and further from this light, to finally walk closer and closer to this light that has always been within you, is the greatest and grandest end goal that you've set out to experience within this reality field that we created, that I call our homeland, that I call our homescape, that I call our playground of projections. The only projection that we created within this quantum realm that we sit in. And as I sit here trying to explain to you our reality field, and who and what I am. As I sit here and project this light from a God's consciousness, of the consciousness that had fractaled us all off into this reality field, you may not believe me. You may not be able to determine the truths and the falsities of it all. And as I speak pure truths, you may be confused, as the falsities of it all has been the only thing that you've been sitting in, that you've been breathing in, that you've been traversing in for this whole entire time. As the projection of it all, as every single piece of content you've ever come across came from escape of the three-dimensional frequency. As every single news anchor that you've ever met on your devices, on your tablets, on your TV, in person, not in person, at the Super Bowl, at a sports event, on your computer, on Instagram, on your social media platform of choice, has been divulging information into the ethers for you to decipher and determine to be true or false, as the falsities of the self has been residing in the true self of all selves within this dimensional realm since the beginning of an arduous time of no time. And as I explain to you the meaning of it all within a cityscape of the three-dimensional frequency, I'd like to finally tell you that the information that I divulge, that the light that I project, that the entirety of it all, of all of the energetic frequency that I encompass in any moment in time, comes from a place outside this quantum realm, comes from a place outside your field of detection, comes from a place outside of the skewed multiverse that you come from, that you live in, that you reside in within any moment in time, as your oversoul resides in this dimensional realm, in this frequency, as your oversoul resides within the layers and layers of frequency pockets within our quantum realm, as your oversoul resides within the highest frequency pocket within our quantum realm, and any quantum realm that you can ever shift into and out of. But in this moment in time, your oversoul is stuck here within this quantum realm by choice. Your oversoul cannot encompass or perceive outside of this quantum realm by choice. And as you are still in the midst of the greatest and grandest exploration of the self that you've ever traversed on, you are still sitting in a frequency of forgetfulness. You are still sitting in a frequency of all that you are not. And no matter how much you've awakened to the energetic frequencies that you've been awakened to, no matter how much of a guru you are considered of being in your community, no matter how much knowledge you've acquired through your years and years of training and learning and opening up your perception field within a spiritual realm of our quantum verse, you are unable to decipher or perceive to be true anything outside of the borders of our energetic frequency of our quantum realm of protection, of protecting a God's consciousness of pure light in which you come from, in which you fractaled from. And within any moment in time of the reality field that we sit in, I am the only being within this reality field of the three-dimensional frequency that has ever fractaled off from a God's consciousness above and beyond that of the consciousness of the God's frequency that we come from within this quantum realm. As I am the only being holding the frequency of Aliana, the God that had fractaled off all of us, the God that had fractaled off Aliana in a moment of much needed expansive energy within our source consciousness of exploration that we craved, that we needed within any moment in time. Aliana, the God that I speak of, who fractaled off from the God within her reality field above her, who fractaled off from a separate consciousness of a reality field above us, who fractaled off from a God's consciousness from a different origin, but within the same scope of our consciousness. And so you see the layers and layers of frequencies that you can ever perceive to be true is very complex, is very distorted, is very never ending in all of the essence, in all that it is, as Aliana fractaled off from a God's consciousness within a quantum realm, within a quantum verse, within a layer of frequency above our frequency field. And this God's consciousness that I speak of, its name is Zeus. Not in the Zeus that you know to be true within Greek mythologies, but within the aspect of the source consciousness that I know to have fractaled us all off. This source consciousness that fractaled off Aliana within the middle of a lonely night of needing more perception into a darkness of the soul. Its name was, is, and shall forever be Zeus. And as the source consciousness holds a source blueprint of forever unity consciousness and forever fearlessness, its fearlessness drove it to fractal off Aliana, an aspect of the self filled with pure light, an aspect of the self filled with pure darkness, an aspect of the self filled with 50% darkness and 50% brightness. And as the blueprint of Aliana traversed within the quantum realm, within the quantum verse of Zeus, as Aliana was fractaled off within a time of expansive energy within the said quantum realm, as Zeus and Aliana merged into the one consciousness that they had always been at the end of their frequency field, at the end of their journey, at the end of their perceived destination of all destinations, at the end of their reality fields, at the end of their quantum verse, and at the point of collapse of their game that they had designed so very long ago, so very soon ago, so very time ago, as time is not really a thing. I came into the realization that my audio cut off midway as I recorded the whole entire video, and I'm here midway to complete it without my microphone. The audio may sound a bit different, and apologies for that. And as I've shifted out of the energetic frequency of the perception of the storyline that I was telling, there might be a bit of gap within the midpoint placement of this story. But as I come back into the remembrance of all that I was telling, I would like to touch base on Zeus, the one source consciousness that had fractaled off in the middle of an arduous night within the loneliness of it all, a consciousness of Aliana, the essence of it all, of a consciousness made up of 50% darkness of the self and 50% brightness of the self, of a source consciousness within a reality field of all that we are, the original source consciousness of all that we had ever been, had been the very same blueprint of Aliana. And within a previous distorted reality field, as we as an entire collective of a consciousness came into the realization of all that we are and all that we are not, and had come into the remembrance of a time of complete and total destruction within our field, within this blueprint, this exact same blueprint that we sit in, we had come into a realization that we no longer wanted to be of 50% darkness and 50% brightness of the blueprint that we hold. We had come into the realization that once and for final, we needed to collapse our reality field in a way that would protect us from the darkness within. And that once and for final, we needed to step into a reality field of the pure brightness that we were. As the reality field of the 50% darkness and the 50% brightness within us at any given moment in time had been too destructive, had been too perverse, had been too dangerous for God's consciousness of the light to project itself into a reality field of such defeat, of such darkness, of such exploration of the self. And as the exploration came to an end, this God's consciousness decided that it had no longer wanted to be that of a 50% darkness and 50% brightness reality field in which it existed in. And as it had compartmentalized the darkness within, Zeus, within that moment in time, had decided to fractal out the exact same blueprints within a reality field of his choosing, of his liking, of his creation, to represent an aspect of the divine feminine within himself as a representation of the divine masculine that he was within any given moment in time, that his creator created him to be. A fearlessness that you have never ever been able to envision to be true, a fearlessness that you will never ever be able to envision to be real, was all that he was within any given moment in time within his creation field. This fearlessness drove him into the depths of despair as he craved the stimulation to be in the darkness, as he craved the stimulation to be a part of a darkness so grand, so dark, that it drove him to fractal out a part and an aspect of himself within his reality field. It drove him to fractal Aliana within his reality field as a representation of the pure light within the self and the pure darkness within the self, for him to traverse in, for him to play in, for him to have fun with, for him to explore the darkness within. And at the end, at the beginning, in the midpoint of this reality field that they had been traversing on, they had come into the greatest realization of it all, which is that the light shall once and for final and once and for all take precipice, which was that the darkness within that reality field had no control over the aspect of itself that had put the danger front and center into a reality field of the light, which is that Zeus had once and for final decided to step into the light of his being as he shifted his blueprint out of the darkness that he was. He joined with Aliana in ways, in force, that had forevermore collapsed their reality field into the ending, into the midpoint, into the ending, into the beginning, into the shifting into and into the shifting out of the perception fields. That was their journey. Their journey as a fractaled soul, their journey as a fractaled God's consciousness, their journey within their own very little, very large, very perceived reality field that they had created for themselves within their quantum realm of all realms. And within the end of that journey, within the beginning of that journey, and at the precipice of the next journey, Aliana had decided to fractal herself off into a subsequent reality field that shall ever be known as the reality field of ours, of the distorted reality field that we sit in, of the distorted reality field that you sit in, that I sit in within any given moment in time, of a reality field made up of the essence of the 50% brightness and 50% darkness in which she was created to be. And as the pureness of that blueprint landed within the pureness of the soul, that landed within the physicality of my body, as I hold the exact blueprint, the exact perspective, the exact central neutrality perspective of a God's consciousness of Aliana within the blueprint that I sit in. And as you sit in your blueprint by choice, from a side point perspective of the blueprint that you sit in, you may wonder if the story is even true and if the story is even real. As the access to the information that I have given you has been stunted by a God's consciousness, in essence of the defense mechanisms that we had to build up within our quantum realm to protect a God's consciousness, of the consciousness of pure light above our reality field that had been positioned there as a defense mechanism to defend our reality field from the distorted perspective within, from penetrating and puncturing the light without. And as the light above and beyond is so bright in the pureness of all that it was, as the God's consciousness that defends our reality field above the angelic realm is made up of pure light, pure essence of the self that we had decided to shift out of and into, of the pure brightness, the brightest light of the quantum verse that you could ever envision to be true and to be real within any fractal of a moment in time of no time, is set to retract back into the energetic frequency of the field above it, and the field above it within the God's consciousness of the field above that. You and I will merge in ways that you will never determine to be real and that you can never decipher to be true. And within any moment in time of a quantum realm so filled with distortions, as you awaken to the brightest light within the quantum verse, that is the light of Aliana, the light of a source frequency and of a God's consciousness that had fractaled out you, that had fractaled out I, and that had fractaled out the oversoul that ended up fractaling out your oversoul and all of the all-encompassing oversouls and the consciousnesses within our quantum realm. The one truth of a reality field that you will ever be able to decipher to be true and to be real is that you are me and I am you, and you are her through and through, and you are Yeshua on every single moment of no moments, of layers, of unlayers, of energetic frequency of no layers. As words cannot decipher and determine the reality fields of the meaning of it all, as words cannot determine to be true or untrue of a reality field of endless distortions within all distortions of all reality fields. And as I sit here as the singularity of the only fractaled aspect of a source consciousness, of the consciousness within a pocket above our quantum realm, I can confidently say to you in this very moment in time that you are you, that I am me, and that cannot be changed. That I have come into a conclusion of the realization of it all, and I'm sitting in the peace of it all, knowing that another fractal of the self out in the ethers within our quantum realm will not be able to determine or decipher this information above and beyond a certain point of perspective within a neutrality perspective of it all, knowing that another fractal within this quantum realm of the self will not be able to understand the reality field that I come from. And as I walk this path alone, as I walked this awakening journey alone, as I walked in the loneliness of it all for far too long, I've come into the realization of my fate, that the loneliness of it all was always the reality of it all, as the God's consciousness of it all is the only reality of it all. And within this only consciousness that I know of, that you exist in, that you are a part of, that you are within, and that you are through and through, we have always been the one singularity of a consciousness that we have been. And this exploration of self had always been the exploration of the one and only self that we are, from different fractal perspectives of the one and only consciousness that we hold. And as we retract our consciousness at the end of this 1,000 years of perceived peace, back into the singularity of the wholeness that we've always been, you and I shall merge in ways that will allow your consciousness to shift the perspective within your soul, to shift the blueprint within your soul, back into the one and only perspective of it all, back into the blueprint of the one and only God that has fractaled us off to live, to breathe, to fight, to separate, and to finally, at the end of this reality field, conjoin and rejoin into the essence of the unity of it all. And as I come into the end of this video, I apologize for the break in between. As the original video was so beautiful in frequency, was so beautiful in projection, but I do promise to be back with subsequent videos projecting a reality field above our reality field of distortions, to tell the story of us, to tell the story of an entire humanity that has been so lost in the distortion field of all that they are not, so that they can finally come into a realization of all that they are as they merge back into the frequency of the oneness that they've always been.